Kieren Culkin has become one of the most famous TV actors in the world in his adult life, but he had a really rough childhood and now he's come out trashing his dad. Kieren Culkin was born into the Culkin family, being the fourth of 7 children, with his older brother being Macaulay Culkin and his dad being Kit Culkin. Kit Culkin actually had a very sad childhood where in the late 40s and early 50s his father owned an editing firm that ended up going bankrupt and the family lived in poverty afterwards, living in a home with no running water. And Kit Culkin tried to break into acting himself when he became an adult, but he had no success, where the only movie he was able to land was A West Side Story in 1961 as a backup dancer. And Kit Culkin developed a severe insecurity due to his little sister Bonnie, who was a ballet prodigy who was discovered to be an actress when she was just a teenager. She dropped the name Culkin to go by Bonnie Bedelia and actually landed over 80 different movies and TV shows in her career, including playing Bruce Willis's wife in Die Hard. And Kit Culkin had almost no success in his career, where by the time he was having kids, his wife was actually supporting the family working as a telephone operator and he just had a part-time job for a local church. But instead, Kit Culkin tried to focus his attention on getting his kids into acting, with his oldest son being Shane Culkin, who did a play on Broadway in 1988. But outside of that, Shane Culkin didn't have much success, so Kit Culkin moved his attention on Macaulay Culkin, who made his TV debut in 1985 for the show The Midnight Hour, and even though he appeared just wearing a mask, his dad was hooked on the idea of him being a star. And that led Macaulay Culkin to his first acting role when he was just 8 years old, doing the movie Rocket Gibralator, which was a huge failure, making just $187,000 on a budget of $3 million. And a year later, Macaulay Culkin had another flop with the movie See You in the Morning, which cost $11 million but only made $4.7 million. But luckily for Macaulay Culkin, after that movie came out, he had another movie which turned out to be a hit, which was the John Hughes film Uncle Buck, which made $79 million on a budget of $15 million. And John Hughes, seen right here with Macaulay Culkin, is definitely the right director to work for, because with his movies Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club, and 16 Candles, he tends to like to reuse the same actors. And right when Uncle Buck came out, John Hughes finished writing the movie Home Alone, which was going to be directed by Christopher Columbus, and he actually suggested Macaulay Culkin for the part. Christopher Columbus said casting Macaulay Culkin for Home Alone was the easiest decision of his life, where even though 600 kids auditioned, he knew right away he was going to be the pick. The movie was a hit, becoming the highest grossing movie of 1990, making $477 million on a budget of $18 million. And Home Alone was actually what brought Kieren Culkin into acting, where Kit Culkin insisted on hiring more of his kids for the movie, and they ended up picking Kieren Culkin to be Fuller, who didn't even know anything about acting at the time. But for Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone wasn't that good for him financially, where he was only paid $100,000, which is the equivalent of making 0.02% of what the movie made at the box office. And making things worse, of the Home Alone money, Macaulay Culkin's dad, Kit, took 85% of it, saying it was to help support his family. This is because under the law with the Coogan Act, parents are only required to put 15% of what their kids make doing child acting under a savings account. Coogan Act started because of this kid right here, Jackie Coogan, who was known for doing Charlie Chaplin's movie The Kid, where he made $3 million throughout his career, which was $66 million today. But the problem was Jackie Coogan's mom and stepdad spent all of the money he made, so he was actually broke when he turned 18. Because that, Jackie Coogan spent most of his adult life being broke, and he ended up playing Uncle Fester in The Addams Family, which is why they named the law after him. Many parents of child actors sadly don't even set up the Coogan accounts, because there's little penalty for them if they don't do it, like Jeanette McCurdy's mom, where she spent all of her money on her 18th birthday. Jeanette found out she was broke. Or Aaron Carter, even though he made $25 million before his 18th birthday, his parents never set up the Coogan account and spent all of his money, so he actually found out he was in debt $1.8 million to the IRS on his 18th. For Macaulay Culkin, even though he didn't make that much money on the first Home Alone, he made a lot more money with the sequel, where they paid him $4.5 million to return. It wasn't even Macaulay Culkin's biggest payday, where he ended up getting paid $8 million for Richie Rich, $8 million for Getting Even with Dad, $5 million for The Good Son, and $1 million for My Girl. The problem was Macaulay Culkin's star power was fading in 1994, where he did the movie Getting Even with Dad, which was a huge failure, getting only a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, and also only made $35 million on a budget of $30 million. Richie Rich also wasn't so rich in 1994, where it made $76 million on a budget of $40 million, but due to marketing ticket splits, it needed $100 million to break even. But because this is the age of 14, Macaulay Culkin decided to retire from acting, saying he didn't want to play a 10-year-old for the next 5 years, and studios didn't want him either after Richie Rich failed. This actually angered Kit Culkin heavily, who wanted Macaulay to keep on acting so he can still make more money until he turned 18 and legally couldn't collect what he was making. Similar to how Kit Culkin pushed for Kieren Culkin to be in Home Alone, he also pitched for Rory Culkin to be in Richie Rich to try and get another child star under his belt. And then Kit Culkin started to spend a lot of the $30 million Macaulay made from movies and endorsement deals on himself, buying expensive cars and Rolexes. And this was only 5 years after Gary Coleman sued his parents after they spent all of the $6 million he made on the show Different Strokes, and he was broke when he turned 18. Macaulay Culkin ended up filing for emancipation at the age of 15, which, even though that wasn't granted, he was given control over his finances and didn't have to live with his dad anymore. Which was a sad thing, because after that, Kieren Culkin still had to live with his father, who was physically and verbally abusive to the whole family, until the mother filed for divorce a few years later. Since the divorce and being cut off from the family, Kit Culkin has become a complete recluse, living in the Midwest with no money to his name, and his girlfriend just passed away. Meanwhile, Macaulay Culkin actually had a very nice life, where in the 2000s he was able to move to France and live off of his earnings as a kid, and also dated Mila Kunis for 8 years. And finally made a return to Hollywood on his own terms, marrying fellow actress Brenda Song, and the two are now parents. Meanwhile, Kieren Culkin's risen to fame doing the show Succession, where he's currently paid $300,000 an episode, making $3 million a year just off that one show. Kieren Culkin has come out saying Kit Culkin tried to get back in contact with him and even came to one of his shows in 2014, but again was just looking for money. So Kieren and Macaulay Culkin both happily don't have their dad in their life, and with that, I'm Charles Sproul. Please subscribe to learn something.